So let's say you decided you want to try a fractional approach to a hire. Start there, and with the intent to eventually make the position full time if it's going well. How do you do that? Like, what's the best way to engage with your team? In terms of working with a fractional person. What sort of timeline should you put around the engagement? What's the scope, etc. So to start out, I would say timing. Well, there's two components really to timing. One is how many hours per week and that sort of thing. And what we found makes sense is 10 to 20. So it really can't be, it's hard to get meaningful work done. We found less than quarter time, so less than 10 hours a week. I think you'll find that most folks, who are interested, genuinely interested in a position, at your company, they can find 10 hours in a week. Whether they find that on the weekend, whether they find that after hours, that should be quite doable. And in some cases, 20 hours is available. You'd be surprised what you can squeeze out when you're interested in starting a new career position. So 10 to 20 hours a week makes sense in terms of how much time you should be asking for, so that it's enough to be substantial and really accomplish something. Then the question of, well, how long do you need to have this period be in order to see real results? And there I would say 2 to 3 months really would be appropriate. 3 months for sure, 2 months, maybe sufficient sometimes. A long enough time period where you can assign from a scope perspective, this shouldn't be a test project, it should be real work. So if you're thinking about a developer, it's enough time to engage them on real sprints. So the scope should be, it should be a real project. Think about it this way. Let's say you're engaging somebody half-time for 3 months. Well, that's 1.5 months, sort of full-time equivalent. That's enough time to accomplish something real. Thinking about that from a dev perspective, depending on your sprint cycle, that's 3 to 6 sprints of full-time work. So someone can get something very substantial done in that time period. So it should be a real project. Even if it's quarter time, then you're still talking about a couple of sprints worth of work if this is dev work we're talking about. And so engaging them in that real way, expectation of real deliverables, no tests. In terms of communication with your team, getting them on your Slack or your Teams so that they are, they should be engaged in a real way. They should be part of the team. So Slack, Teams, email, all of the communication. You'll find that most employees that are willing to work in this context, which is basically everybody, can find time to make 1 or 2 meetings a week during the business day. So they can probably make some of your meetings, not all, but some of your meetings that are during the business day, even while they haven't fully engaged. So having that construct as well, 1 to 2. I mean, honestly, I'll even say 1 to 3. At Fraction, we typically call for 2 to 3, meetings a week that happen during the business day, being reasonable. So, in terms of scope, a real project, using your real communication channels that you use as a team internally, and having a couple meetings a week in order to assess progress and really form a bond with that person. That way, you'll know pretty quickly whether or not the team as a whole likes the new potential employee, thinks they're terrible, or somewhere in between. So if you do this, I think you're going to get a much better assessment of the potential full-time hire, and then you're also going to get your team's feedback because they will have interacted with the person. Final how-to that I didn't leave enough space for, so I'll race a little bit, is comp. And the key thing when you go to make that offer, to the extent that this is possible in your organization, is that bringing them across the finish line. Now you have a case where a person is full-time and they're fractional, so they're making some money. So how do you bring them across? How do you make it worth their while to take the full-time position? And the answer lies on the equity side of the equation. because equity options, whatever variable performance comp, you can bring to the table. This is how you seal the deal, because that's what's not available to the candidate in a fractional capacity. And secondly, if they're really, have seen your company now and buy into the vision and the potential growth, then this is interesting to them. So that's how you close the deal.